The 2000s are back in every sense of the word. The fashion, the music, the unhealthy beauty standards, and of course, the media. Gossip Girl, The Vampire Diaries, Twilight, Gilmore Girls, The Princess Diaries, and Enchanted have all gotten one more time to shine. There is one iconic early 2000s show that consistently is left out of this conversation, and that is The OC.
Welcome to the OC, bitch!
The OC was a teen drama that aired on Fox for 4 seasons from 2003 to 2007. The show follows the life of a group of friends living in the OC. The group is composed by Benjamin McKenzie as Ryan Atwood, Misha Barton as Marissa Cooper, Adam Brody as Seth Cohen, and Rachel Bilson as Summer Roberts. I really have not seen anybody talk about this show with the resurgence of the 2000s anywhere, not in regards to the music on the show, the styling, the actual show itself at all. And that's why I decided to make this video on it. This video is obviously inspired by Mike's videos on Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, Glee, etc. So without further ado, let's get into it. The pilot of this show is amazing. I personally love it. It does an amazing job at showing who these characters are, how they behave, why they behave that way, and my favorite part of it is how we get right into the action from the first scene. I heard somewhere, I don't remember where, and I don't know if it's true, but I heard that the creator considers the first 3 episodes to be the pilot, which makes sense. So let's first talk about those 3 episodes. So the show starts with Ryan and his brother Trey. They have a typical white sheep, black sheep relationship where Trey is always looking for trouble, and Ryan joins him even though he doesn't really want to do it because he likes to do the right thing, but he still does it because he loves his brother. So the 2 of them are stealing a car, and while running away, they get chased by the police and crash the car, for which they get arrested. Ryan gets Sandy Cohen assigned as his lawyer. Sandy is the embodiment of like the cool dad, at least on the first season, but we will get to that later. Sandy is just like the perfect dad and like the perfect lawyer. He just wants to help everyone and he just wants everyone to do well. So after giving his speech to Ryan about staying out of trouble, he gets him out of prison, and after seeing his mom, decides to give him his phone number just in case that he needs it, because it's obvious that he doesn't have a good life at home. And he was correct in doing so, because the second Ryan gets to his house, he is immediately kicked out by his mom. So he ends up having to call Sandy, who takes him back home to the OC. When they get there, we meet Kirsten. Kirsten is Sandy's wife. She runs her dad's real estate company, and the show kind of makes it seem like she's a snob who is unreasonably angry for not wanting Ryan in her house. And for the way that they talk to each other, I actually got the vibe that they were like a marriage on the rocks, but that's not the case at all. Kirsten is actually very cool, and even though she's not very happy about it, she still allows Ryan to stay in the pool house. While Kirsten and Sandy are talking about Ryan, he meets Marissa Cooper. Marissa is the environment of this Abby Lee Miller quote.
You're skinny, you're blonde, you're pretty. You're telling me nobody at school hates you? Wake up.
Despite the perfection that is presented on the surface, she's also deeply troubled, and we would see this develop more throughout the show, but it doesn't get as deep as it should, in my opinion, but again, we will talk more about that in the future. Anyway, they meet and have this very cute and iconic meet cute.
Who are you?
Whoever you want me to be.
But they get interrupted when Marissa is picked up by her boyfriend, Luke. Luke is the typical dumb bully jock who is aggressively attractive. Before they leave, Marissa invites Ryan to this fundraising event that she's putting on. The next day, Ryan meets Seth Cohen. He is, of course, Sandy and Kirsten's son. He is like your typical nerdy guy, obsessed with comics, has no friends, gets bullied, thinks he's better than everybody because he's a nerd, and is obsessed with one girl to the point that it's kind of creepy. In many ways, Seth is like the nice guy, you know what I mean? Oh, and he also has a boat, which is surprisingly important for the rest of the show. The 2 of them go sailing on his boat that he named after the girl that he likes, Summer. We will talk about her in a minute. And he tells Ryan about his plan of going to Tahiti in the summertime. Meanwhile, Marissa's house is visited by the U.S. Secretary and Exchange Commission, who are trying to talk to her dad, but he keeps blowing them off. Her dad, Jimmy Cooper, is an investor. And I don't know how fans of the show generally feel about Jimmy, but I'm sure that if this show was made today, everybody would hate him. He is the embodiment of failing upwards. He tells her that everything is going to be fine, and everyone goes and gets ready for the fundraising event. Ryan and Sandy have their first and really cute father-son moment when Sandy teaches Ryan how to put on a tie. The way in which happens with Ryan not wanting to ask for help and Sandy taking the reins and teaching him anyway It's basically how their relationship develops throughout the whole show. We also see Marissa's relationship with her parents. We meet her mom, Julie Cooper, whom used to be poor, so she has made her life mission to be rich, and the only thing she cares about is money and looks. So she wants Marissa to always look perfect, and thus she always criticizes how she looks. We also see her sister Caitlin, but she's not really a character until season 3, so let's ignore her. During the event, Jimmy has like a little meltdown when people start to talk about how much they trust him with their money, because he's an investor, like I said. And in case you didn't notice yet, he's mishandled everybody's money and lost it, but no one knows yet. At this event, we also finally meet Summer. Like I mentioned earlier, she's Marissa's best friend, and she is Seth's crush. In the beginning of the show, she's more so like a side character, but she starts to have a more prominent role around episode 7 or 8. Anyway, she's your typical overly sexual brunette. She is seemingly very confident, but she's hiding her insecurities under all her sexuality. She shows up to the event and she's interested not in Seth, but in Ryan, so she invites him to this after party that they're going to have at their friend Hollis's house. Ryan goes because he wants to see Marissa, but he obviously takes Seth with him. While drunk, Summer tries to make up with Ryan, which makes Seth mad, and he has a tantrum and tells everyone who Ryan really is, because up to this point, everybody thought that he was like Seth's cousin from Boston. Going back to earlier in the night, during the fashion show, Marissa is doing fuck me eyes to Ryan, and during the party, she's flirting with him, which obviously makes her boyfriend angry. Now, he is a hypocrite because he cheats on her, literally cheats on her during this party, and Ryan sees him. He doesn't see him cheating exactly, but he sees him living with the girl. Anyways, after Ryan and Seth fight, Seth is leaving the party when the water polo team starts bullying him. Ryan sees this and goes to defend him, and he ends up having a fight with Luke, and Luke says this iconic line.
Welcome to the OC, bitch!
The next day, Kirsten is very angry and blames Ryan for Seth getting into a fight, so Ryan ends up going back home, but when he gets there, his mom and everything in the house is gone, so Sandy picks him up again and takes him back to Newport. It's now Ryan's last day in Newport after coming back. Sandy is going to help put him in a group home because Kirsten doesn't want him to stay in their house, but Seth doesn't want him to go, and Ryan wants to straight up run away. So they come up with a plan. Like I said earlier, Kirsten runs a real estate company, and that company has model homes. One of these homes is not finished and it's not going to be finished, so Seth decides that this will be the perfect place for Ryan to hide in for the time being. While they are running away, Marissa sees them and decides to go with them. The next day, Sandy calls the police when he realizes that Ryan is gone and Seth is questioned by them. Meanwhile, Luke shows up to Marissa's house when she's leaving to see Ryan, but she blows him off and he goes to Hollis's house. After spending some time at the model house and getting hungry, Marissa, Seth, and Ryan go to the diner to eat something, and they come across Luke. So they try to get out of the back door, but they are unable to do so and end up having a fight with him again, which leads to Sandy knowing that Ryan is close because the restaurants call the police.
You know what I like about rich kids? Nothing.
When they go back to the model house, Kirsten and Jimmy show up, and Jimmy tells her about having some money problems and asks her for $100,000, which she agrees to give him, and she also says that the next day people will show up to finish the house, which means that Ryan has to leave. Marissa, who is at a party, hears Luke talking shit about Ryan, so she leaves and goes to the model home, where she has a fight with Ryan because she wants to spend the night, but he tells her that she can't because if she does, he won't be able to leave and he can stay around forever. So she ends up leaving the home crying, and while she leaves, Luke shows up with his friends to beat up Ryan. While doing this, some candles fall and the house goes up in flames, but while everybody runs, Luke shows a bit of humanity by dragging Ryan out of the house so he doesn't die. Important to note that while this is all happening, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen is playing in the background. Anyways, Kirsten and Sandy are called to the house and are told that someone had been living in there, so Seth comes clean. Meanwhile, Ryan, who had run away, is trying to get a ride back to the Coens' house, and guess who shows up? Luke. So they both go together to the house, and both Ryan and Luke get arrested and are taken in to be interrogated. Luke obviously is freed very quickly because his parents are rich, but Ryan has to stay under police custody until his hearing. Seth tries to go visit Ryan and convinces Kirsten to go with him, and while they're there, one of the inmates starts to call Kirsten, and Ryan ends up punching him. That inmate had been threatening him all of the episode, and Kirsten is afraid that he will try to kill Ryan, so she decides to take him home with them. Still, she doesn't actually want him to stay in their house, so she hires a private investigator to find his mom. While Sandy is trying to fix the whole thing with his mom, Kirsten takes Ryan to help her set up an event, and during it, Marissa is trying to talk to Luke, who won't talk to her, and Ryan is trying to talk to both of them, but neither will listen to him. Sandy finds Ryan's mom and takes her to Newport to see him. She tells him that she's sober, apologizes for abandoning him, and promises him that things will be different in the future. So he gives her a chance, and Kirsten invites her to stay the night and go to the event that she's planning. The next day, during the event, Ryan and his mom are having fun playing cards, and she seems to be staying sober, but we see that she's obviously struggling, and she starts drinking again, which makes sense because she had only been sober for a week, and she's in like a Vegas-style event, so the odds are really not in her favor. Luke and Marissa get back together after Ryan talks with him. Julie, being the bitch that she is, thanks Sandy in a very passive-aggressive way for giving Jimmy the $100,000, knowing damn well that he didn't know about it, which causes a fight between Sandy and Kirsten, but like always, it's all good by the end of the episode. Ryan's mom gets very drunk and makes a fool out of herself at the party, and the next day she decides to run away and abandon Ryan again, but Ryan wakes up and she's forced to say goodbye. She tells Kirsten to take care of him and that she's giving him the chance to have a real mother, so Kirsten decides that Ryan will stay in the house. So that's our pilot, all 3 episodes of it. I understand why the show was so big upon first airing, because it really drags you in and makes you emotionally attached to all of the characters, especially Ryan, from the very first moment. A different show would have dragged out whether Ryan was or wasn't going to stay in Newport until the last episode of the first season, and that was actually one of my concerns when I started to watch the show, because I didn't really want to watch that. But luckily they got it done and over within the first 3 episodes, and because of this, it made me keep watching and become invested in how Ryan would acclimate to being in the OC. Now that Ryan is staying, Kirsten and Sandy become his little guardians, and they tell him that he has to stay away from trouble or he could be taken away. The first big event that he's going to attend as a part of the family is the debutante ball, where Marissa and Summer are presenting. During the rehearsal, Summer wants to be paired with Ryan, but Marissa pairs him with Anna Stern, a new girl that has moved to Newport from Pittsburgh, and Summer ends up having to dance with Seth. Prior to the ball, Seth and Ryan go to a party with Ryan is punched by Luke, after which Ryan decides not to go to the ball so he doesn't get into a fight with him again. And likewise, Marissa decides that she doesn't want to go because of her feelings for Ryan. Seth tells Anna that Ryan won't come, and Summer tells Luke that Marissa won't go, so Summer turns out Seth to dance with Luke, and Seth ends up dancing with Anna. However, Ryan and Marissa decide to go to the ball eventually, and when they arrive, Luke breaks up with Marissa and leaves, meaning that Summer has no one to dance with and tries to go back to Seth, but he turns her down. Originally, Sandy had also decided not to go because while he was working, he finds out that Jimmy is being investigated for fraud, which means that they are now also being investigated too, since they gave him $100,000. Everything starts to close in on Jimmy when one of his clients, Hollis' dad, starts asking him for some of his money back to invest in something else, and Jimmy tells him that he would do it later, but then at the debutante ball admits that there is no money, and they end up having a fight. A few days go by and Ryan decides to get a job because he doesn't feel comfortable with the Coens paying for everything. So he gets a job as a waiter at a restaurant. While working, Ryan meets this guy named Donnie and they go to a party together. Earlier in the episode, he had agreed to hang out with Seth since they hadn't had time to spend together that much since he got the job. So when Seth goes to pick him up from work, he invites him to the party but Seth declines. Ryan invited Marissa on a date after he saw that her date with Luke ended up wrong, but she instead invites him to help her take care of her little sister. And Seth, who is still trying to hang out with Ryan to no avail because he's busy, ends up deciding that he's going to go to a party with Donnie. Ryan gets worried and ends up going with them, but of course they get in trouble, their car gets vandalized, and they end up leaving, and Marissa gets mad at Ryan after hearing him talk about some dancers, so Seth has to go to fix it and sets up a new day for them. While he's telling Ryan about this, he invites Donnie to a party in Newport, which of course ends up in disaster after Donnie shows up with a bunch of his friends, gets mad when the rich kids make fun of him, and ends up shooting Luke in the arm. But he ends up being fine, so don't worry about it. Back to the Jimmy drama, Julie goes on a weekend girls trip with the other ladies in Newport who are talking mad shit about her. But she goes anyway because she wants to show a strong front, and she tells Jimmy to get his shit together while she's gone, and while on the trip she starts contemplating divorcing him. Sandy meanwhile feels bad for Jimmy, so he decides to help him as a lawyer. They spend the weekend together and Sandy tells him that his only choice is to give back all of the money, which is around $4 million, which means that they will have to sell the house. Jimmy at first refuses to do so because he knows that Julie will leave him, but he ends up telling her they have two choices, either selling the house and starting over or not selling the house, and he goes to jail for 8 to 10 years. A few more days go by and the Coens are visited by Kirsten's dad, Caleb. This man is a piece of shit. I think the only good quality that he has is that he loves his daughters, but that is like the bare fucking minimum. He visits with his girlfriend Gabrielle, and this gives the start to one of the two predatory storylines of the season, because Gabrielle is really hot and really attracted to Ryan, but she's also much older than him. Kirsten has planned a birthday party for her dad, and while talking about it, he tells her that he is demoting her because he's mad that she's making decisions without consulting him, including becoming Ryan's legal guardian. So Sandy starts encouraging her to quit working for him, but she tells him that she doesn't want to. Sandy keeps pushing her all throughout the episode and eventually tells Caleb that she's quitting, even though she doesn't want to, and Caleb gets angry and tells her that it's fine, but eventually Sandy talks to Caleb and he tells Kirsten that she can keep her job. Anyways, after the shooting, Marissa and Luke get back together and she doesn't want to talk to Ryan because she's afraid, since Donnie was his friend. So when he goes to her house to invite her to a party and he sees Luke there, he ends up just leaving. He goes to work and Gabrielle is there flirting with him, but Marissa shows up and tells Ryan that she doesn't know who to choose between him and Luke, and he tells her to call him when she has decided. Later on, he sees her and invites her to Caleb's party, and she tells him that she's going with Luke. Meanwhile, Summer asks Seth to invite her, and he of course does, but she only wants to use him in order to get close to the rich guys that will be at the party. After he notices it and gets angry, he basically tells her that he's been obsessed with her since they were kids, and they kiss.
Was friends with all the fish, a shiny tail, and seashells, huh?
Back to Ryan and Gabrielle. They flirt with each other during dinner, and after the argument between Sandy, Caleb, and Kirsten, Ryan and Gabrielle make out in his room. When they see each other at the party, they keep flirting, and she tells him that they should see each other in private. After he sees Marissa with Luke, he decides to go to his room, and Gabrielle sneaks in. They start making out, and when they're about to do it, Marissa shows up and storms out angry for some reason, since she's literally at the party with her boyfriend, but whatever. Marissa then goes looking for Luke, and they go to his house and have sex. Back to the Jimmy scandal, he shows up to the party and asks Caleb for a job, and he of course turns him down. Julie then goes to Caleb and puts on her best performance and tells him that she was divorcing Jimmy, after which Caleb offers to help her and the kids and asks her to have dinner with him. A few days go by and Sandy accepts a job at a private law firm where one of his old friends, Rachel, works at. Meanwhile, Jimmy moves out with the help of Kirsten, since he and Julie are getting a divorce, and Jimmy ends up kissing Kirsten. On the side of the kids, Seth is trying to convince Ryan to lie about going to a comic convention and instead go to Tijuana, which is something that apparently everyone does before the school year starts. And of course, Marissa, Summer, Luke, Holly, and their other friends are also going. While the whole group is at the restaurant, Marissa decides that she's not going, and Seth tells Summer that she can go with him. Meanwhile, Holly tries to convince Luke of sleeping with her, and once again, Ryan sees them. The next day, when they're about to leave, Jimmy tells Marissa to go, and she ends up going to Tijuana with them. While on their way to Tijuana, they get in a car accident, or their car breaks down or something, and they have to share a motel room, the four of them. When they're about to go to sleep, Marissa gets a call from her dad who tells her about the divorce, and Marissa is thinking about going back home, but Summer convinces her to go with them to Tijuana. When they get there, Summer mentions that she has to buy some pills for her stepmother. Keep it in mind because it will come up. Nighttime comes and they go to a party. At this point, Luke still doesn't know that Marissa did go, so he's dancing with and kissing Holly. They are all at the same bar, and while Marissa and Ryan are walking around, they see them. Ryan and Luke hit each other, and Marissa goes back to the hotel. When Summer reaches her, Marissa takes the pills that Summer had bought for her stepmother and runs away. They go crazy trying to find her. She goes to a bar and starts both drinking and popping pills. So when they eventually find her, she's in a dark alley, passed out. The next time we see Ryan and Seth, they are back home and they get a call about Marissa's well-being. So everybody goes to the hospital, but Julie tells them to leave, blames Ryan for Marissa's overdose, and tells him to stay away from her or else she's gonna get him to go to jail. In other news, the school year is going to start and Ryan has to be enrolled in Seth's school. He has to have an interview with Dr. Kim, who tells him that he's not adequate for the school, but still they convince her and she tells Ryan that he has to take a leveling test. While Marissa is at the hospital, Julie tells Jimmy that she wants to have full custody of the kids, and Marissa hears her, so she calls Ryan while he's studying and asks him to go see her. So he goes to the hospital, but while they're talking, Julie enters the room and calls security after noticing the flowers that he had bought for her. Sandy starts working at the law firm, and while he's working, Jimmy goes to his house to ask for help in the custody battle against Julie. While this is happening, Julie tells Marissa that she called a psychologist to evaluate her and that she's planning to take her to San Diego. After which, Marissa calls Summer, who goes to Seth's house, and then they go pick up Ryan while he's doing his test so that they can go to the hospital and help Marissa escape. While Marissa is being evaluated, we learn some things about her. She had anorexia, she stole a pack of cigarettes and a lighter when she was younger, she may have a drinking problem, and she obviously has problems with her mother. The psychologist tells Julie that she has some problems to work through and that she could do it both at the mental facility and in Newport, but Julie wants to keep her away from Jimmy and Ryan. So Julie goes behind Jimmy's back and tells the doctor that she has everything ready to take Marissa back to San Diego that same day. When she leaves the room, Ryan comes out of the bathroom and gives Marissa a dress to disguise herself. They almost get caught because Luke shows up, but when he realizes they're running away, he helps them while Summer distracts Julie and the doctor. Julie, Jimmy, Rachel, and Sandy see each other at a restaurant, and the whole thing is very tense. When Jimmy goes back home, he finds the Fab Four in his living room, and Marissa tells him about Julie basically trying to kidnap her. Julie calls Jimmy, and Marissa runs away again. Back at the Coven house, Sandy and Kirsten have an argument about their weird relationships with Rachel and Jimmy, but they ultimately trust each other, so the whole thing dies down. Ryan calls Sandy, who calls Julie, and they talk about Marissa. Marissa then comes out of the shadows and tells Julie that she not only does not want to go to San Diego, but she also doesn't want to live with her, and promises that she will see a therapist, but only if it's in Newport. At the end, Ryan goes back to Dr. Kim, takes the test, and passes it. The first day of school is here. Marissa has everybody talking about her, but on the good side, her and Ryan will go out together after school. Summer is still ignoring Seth, but on the good side for him, Anna is at the school, so she agrees to help him try to get with her. Marissa tries to get out of the school commission because everybody is talking mad shit about her overdose, but Dr. Kim convinces her to stay, so she and Ryan are unable to go out because she has to plan the carnival after school. And Seth and Anna join the school paper after school, so Ryan has nothing to do and he decides to join the soccer team, which for some reason also has Luke in it. I thought he was in the water polo team, but whatever. After practice, Luke goes to talk to Marissa, Ryan sees them and leaves, and the next day, Seth tells Ryan to ask her, while Summer tells Marissa not to tell him that she talked with Luke. That's exactly what they do, which makes Ryan angry because she lied to him. And when he sees them talking during their practice, he ends up attacking Luke, which gets him suspended for 2 games. That night, Marissa goes to talk to Ryan about attacking Luke, and they end up having a fight, and the next day she won't talk to him. On the adult side, Sandy is given a case about this company that owns some land that, if meddled with, will ruin the quality of the water in Newport. The company is, of course, Caleb's company. When Kirsten finds out, she gets furious, and on top of that, the whole thing is put in the news before she even tells her dad about it. Back to the kids, as part of the plan to help Summer and Seth get back together, Anna decides to make her jealous. So she starts spending a lot of time with Seth, both at school and during the carnival, which does make her jealous. But obviously, Anna isn't just doing it for this reason. She has a crush on Seth, but she has accepted her fate, and she has accepted that he doesn't like her like that. Still, after talking to Ryan about it, she decides to kiss him, but when they realize that Summer saw them, she tells him that it was part of the plan. At the carnival, Ryan apologizes to Luke and gets on a carousel to talk to Marissa. Anna pays for it to be stopped mid-air so that they can have some time to talk. Ryan tells Marissa that he trusts her, and they kiss.
I really don't trust people. But I trust you.
A few days go by, and Ryan and Marissa are chilling in his room when he invites her on their first official date. Meanwhile, Anna tells Seth that he needs to stop talking so much about Summer because he's becoming unbearable to be around. On the adult side, Kirsten and Sandy agree to go home early and have some time for themselves, but Rachel convinces Sandy that he needs to stay late that night. Meanwhile, Kirsten sees Julie talking to Caleb when he gets to the office, and he tells her that he's going to donate some money for an event that Julie is planning. Marissa cancels the date with Ryan and convinces her to go to the party with her because she's very excited about it. She thinks that there is a possibility that her parents are going to get back together and everything will go back to normal, but later on, Ryan sees Julie kissing Caleb. Seth agrees to stop talking about Summer and invites Anna to the charity event, and out of jealousy, Summer invites this guy named Chip. When the lawyers get together to talk about the case, holidays, Caleb ends up making personal jabs about Rachel and Sandy, and then he and Kirsten argue about her. That day, Sandy worked till late with Rachel and she tries to kiss him, but he ends up leaving and going to the charity event. At the charity event, Ryan and Julie talk about the kiss and she tells him not to tell Marissa anything and to not get involved, but he goes and tells her anyway. Seth spends all of his time with Anna. Summer gets jealous, kisses him, and admits that she likes him. While Julie is giving a speech, she calls Marissa and tells her to unveil the winners of the dinner that they were giving away during the charity, and instead of doing that, she tells everybody that Julie and Caleb are dating, and the winner of the dinner end up being Sandy and Kirsten. It's now Thanksgiving, and Ryan is playing around with the Coens in the kitchen when he gets a call from his brother who asks him to go see him in prison. So he agrees to go before dinner, and Marissa, who is supposed to spend time with her mother, insists on going with him and lies by saying that Julie is okay with it. In the prison, Trey asks Ryan to go pick up a stolen car because he owes someone money and they have been beating him up for it. He agrees and tells Marissa that he's going to take her home, but she tells him that she won't leave him alone. Ryan then goes back to his hometown, Chino, to Teresa's house. Teresa is his childhood girlfriend and her brother has the car that his brother wants him to pick up. While he's doing the whole thing, Teresa, her mom, and Marissa spend some time talking about Ryan's childhood and how he was growing up. After finding out that Marissa lied to him through Seth, Ryan gets mad at her and gives her the keys of the car and tells her to go back home while he goes to take the car to the people that his brother owed the money to. While there, they try to beat him up because they said that his brother took too long paying, but right when they're about to do it, Marissa, who had followed him there, shows up and takes him back to the prison, where he tells his brother that he won't do anything else for him, and his brother tells him not to visit again. Back at the Coen house, Seth invites Anna to spend the holidays with him, but Summer also shows up at his house, so he ends up going back and forth with Anna being in his room and Summer in Ryan's room, trying to sleep with both of them. In the adult side, Sandy and Kirsten have decided to get Rachel and Jimmy to date. They originally are opposed to it, but they start to bond over the football game right when Julie and Caleb show up at the house looking for Marissa, but then decide to stay for dinner. While Julie and Jimmy argue about where is Marissa, Seth accidentally tells everybody that she's in Chino with Ryan. All of this culminates in a fight between all of the adults that ends up with the turkey burning, which leads to everybody eating Chinese food and both Anna and Summer leaving their respective rooms, realizing what's going on and leaving the house angry at Seth. The next day at school, Ryan and Luke are paired in a school project and Anna and Summer end up becoming friends due to their anger towards Seth and end up hanging out with each other in order to make him uncomfortable until he apologizes with them and they stop hanging out. They both ask him out and he agrees to both of them, having a day with Anna on Friday and with Summer on Tuesday. After school, Ryan goes to Luke's house to start working on their project and they actually start to get along. So when they're done, Luke takes Ryan to the car dealership where his dad works, and while they're looking at some of the cars, they see Luke's dad cheating on his mom with another man. The next day, Ryan wants to talk about it, but Luke just tells him that if he tells anyone, he will kill him. Ryan, of course, tells Marissa, and we are led to believe that she tells someone else because soon enough, the entire town knows. Luke gets mad at Ryan, and he gets mad at Marissa because he thinks that she's the one who told. But we later found out that his dad actually told the truth to his mom, who promptly decided to file for divorce and tell her friends, who then told everyone else. After everything comes out, Luke, Marissa, and Ryan go to hang out at a baseball field, and they are seen by two guys who call them a slur. They punch them, but then more guys come out of the darkness and beat them up. Luke's dad goes to pick him up at the Coen's house and they talk about the whole thing, and Ryan apologizes to Marissa. In the adult side, Sandy tells Jimmy that if he sells the house, he will be able to pay back the money that he owns, but he is worried that Julie will refuse to sell it, which she does. But she just says that to make him mad and asks Caleb to find her a place to live or take her and Caitlin to live with him, but he tells her no and they break up. Julie and Kirsten are hanging out with their friends, and Julie has told everyone that Kirsten had gotten drunk during Thanksgiving and basically made her look like an alcoholic, which makes Kirsten mad for obvious reasons. But the fun doesn't last long for Julie because soon enough everybody is making fun of her and her situation, and of course the only person that defends her is Kirsten. Back to Jimmy and Sandy, the latter has the brilliant idea to tell the only person that is supporting him besides Kirsten and helping him in this situation that he kissed his wife completely unprovoked. Like, the whole thing is really weird because there was no reason at all for him to bring that up, and of course Sandy gets angry not only because it happened but because Kirsten didn't tell him. But of course, like always, they fix everything by the end of the episode and everything is fine. It's now Christmaka, a holiday that Seth made up mixing Christmas and Hanukkah, and he has the genius idea to give both Anna and Summer the same thing and invites them both to a party that night, but this time around he doesn't lie to them about it. Anna gives Seth a comic book that she made about him, while Summer dresses up as Wonder Girl, and eventually both girls realize that they're being a pair of idiots by chasing around this dude and that they deserve better. So they end up telling him that he needs to choose and leave the party. The next day, he invites them both to his house and tells them both that they should be friends, and they both reject his friendship. Meanwhile, Marissa and Ryan talk about how much they hate Christmas, but they get happy because they're going to be at the party together. Ryan has to go buy some stuff, and he takes Marissa with him. While they're leaving, they are stopped by a security guard who checks Marissa's bag and realizes that she has stolen a watch. Because of this, she gets grounded by her mom and is forced to go back to therapy. Before they leave for the party, Marissa and Ryan have a bit of a discussion, and Marissa steals a bottle from her dad's cabinet and takes it to the party. At the party, she starts drinking and tries to get Ryan to drink. He gets worried for her, and they end up having a fight with her storming off of the party. He follows her, and she crashes a car while trying to leave. Ryan eventually gets in the car, and Marissa keeps drinking, but they get stopped by a police officer who ends up having to leave to do something else and lets them go with a warning. Ryan has a bit of a breakdown because it all reminds him of his family, and he asks her to stop doing what she's doing, and she cries and agrees to it. On the adult side, Caleb turns down the agreement that they showed him in regards to the lawsuit, meaning that Sandy is going to have to spend the holidays getting the case ready. While Kirsten was watching the company's figures, she finds some weird stuff going on, and she decides to dig deeper, and doing so she finds out that the zones that they are fighting for are worthless because they're unsafe and they were not going to get a permit. She tells Sandy, who confronts Caleb and tells him that instead of the $250 million that he wants to buy the land for $1, to what he agrees. At the end of the episode, Ryan hangs his Christmas booth next to the rest of the family, and Marissa goes to her first therapy session where she meets Oliver Task, and so it begins the worst storyline in the season and the one that almost made me stop watching the show. It's New Year's Eve now. Ryan and Marissa are coming back from a date, and they agree to spending New Year's Eve together, just chilling out because Ryan is still worried about what happened during Christmas. They start kissing, and while they're kissing, Marissa tells him that she loves him, to what he responds by saying thank you. Marissa is obviously upset by this and ends up leaving. When Ryan goes back to his room, he finds a strange woman there, and the woman is Haley, Kirsten's little sister. She's basically the black sheep of the family. She just wants to travel and party on her dad's dime, of course, and she had been missing for a while because in the previous episode, Kirsten and Caleb had a conversation about her because they didn't know where she was or what she was doing. Marissa is still going to therapy, and she comes across Oliver again, who invites her to a New Year's Eve party at his penthouse. Despite the fact that she and Ryan had already agreed to staying in, she tells him that they will be there, and Oliver tells him that his girlfriend will also be there. When she tells Ryan about it, he tells her that he doesn't want to go, and she tells him that that's fine, but she's going. On the adult side, Haley is trying to get everybody out of the house. She helps Kirsten get ready for her annual New Year's Eve dinner with Sandy and rushes them out of the door after telling them that they are boring, which leads to them going to a party that she gets them into that turns out to be a swingers party. Both of them flirt with other people in front of each other and get mad at each other for it, but by the end of the night, they are the only uncoupled couple, and they end up together like always. Meanwhile, Haley convinces Ryan to go to Oliver's party by telling him that it's very likely that Marissa and Oliver will kiss at midnight. But right when Ryan and Seth are going to leave, a bunch of people show up to the house to party and immediately trash the place, which leads to them both staying in order to try and get everybody to leave. Back at the penthouse, Marissa, Summer, and Anna are there. Anna tells Marissa that her parents are friends with the parents of the guy who lives in the penthouse, but when Marissa mentions Oliver, Anna acts like she's never heard that name. And I would like to tell you that this will come up later, but it won't. Marissa and Oliver spend the entire time together because Ryan isn't there, and conveniently, neither is Natalie, Oliver's supposed girlfriend. Back at the Cohen house, Haley has a fight with a woman that she owes money to and locks Seth and Ryan in the pool house. She eventually lets them out because a girl wants to beat her up. They manage to end the party, and Ryan goes super fast to Oliver's house and gets there right when the countdown ends and kisses Marissa. At the Cohen house, Sandy and Kirsten get home, and Kirsten has an argument with Haley in the kitchen, and while Seth is taking out the trash, Anna shows up and kisses him, while Summer kisses some random guy that she met at the party, and Oliver is just there. A few days go by, everybody is annoyed by Haley. Anna and Seth are dating, but they haven't told Summer, and Ryan and Marissa realize that they spend way too much time together, so they try to do things on their own. Ryan takes Luke home to spend time with Seth because he's been getting bullied over his dad, and Marissa goes to Oliver's house and tells Ryan, who ends up going there with the other two. At the penthouse, Oliver invites them all to a concert from this band that they all love. There are no more tickets available, but Oliver says that he knows their manager and invites them. Ryan initially doesn't want to go, but he's peer pressured into going by Marissa, who tells him that it'll be fine because Oliver will be there with his girlfriend and they will be together. When they get to the venue, they say that they don't have tickets, but that they know Oliver, and the person at the gate tells them that they don't know who Oliver is, but he calls them and tells them to go to the back where he introduces them to the band. And remember that plan of Marissa being with Ryan and Oliver with Natalie? Well, that's cancelled because once again, she doesn't show up, so Oliver, Marissa, and Ryan end up spending the time together. In the middle of all of this, Ryan and Marissa have a fight because she wants to spend all of her time with Oliver, and this obviously makes Ryan mad. So she tells him that if he wants to go, that's fine, and he takes her up for it and leaves. But while he's leaving, he sees Oliver getting arrested for buying coke from an undercover cop, and ends up going to the police station and calling Sandy to help him. Oliver gives Ryan a woe is me speech and gets him to soften up on him a little bit. Ryan ends up calling Marissa, and Oliver tells her what happened, and she then goes to Ryan's home and thanks him, and then everyone hangs out in the living room. But then the cameras pan out and Oliver is standing outside looking at them. Also, Seth and Anna tell Summer that they are dating, and she tells them that she's okay with it. On the adult side, Jimmy and Haley see each other and agree to go on a date together, while Sandy tells Kirsten that she needs to talk to Haley about when she's leaving. At nighttime, Sandy and Kirsten thought that they would have some time to be alone, but Haley and Jimmy decide to have their date at the house, which leads to them fighting, and Haley agrees to leave, but she ends up apologizing to Sandy, stays in the house, and kisses Jimmy. After a few days, Oliver goes to Marissa's house and tells her that she wants to thank Ryan for what he did by taking everybody to Palm Springs to play golf. And I'm sorry, but does Ryan look like someone who plays golf? Ryan should have assumed that Oliver hated him right in that moment. Anyways, Oliver tells them that his parents and Natalie will be there, but shocker, neither is there. And as a matter of fact, when they're about to leave, Oliver tells Marissa that he and Natalie broke up, so Marissa decides to go with him instead of going with her boyfriend, and Ryan ends up going with Luke. When they get to the house, Oliver sets them up in a room with twin beds, and it turns out that during this little trip, Marissa decided to tell him Ryan's whole life story, which obviously makes him uncomfortable, especially because Oliver is being very passive-aggressive about it. When they go to play golf, Luke and Ryan bond over their hatred of Oliver, who has spent the entire day flirting with Marissa, and when Ryan finally gets a ball in the hole, he ends the game and challenges them to a race in the golf cars where he causes them to have an accident.
Look out! Look out! Right. Stop!
And of course, Marissa defends Oliver because she's not a good girlfriend. At nighttime, when they're going to do the dishes, Ryan tells Oliver that the next time he wants to flirt with his girlfriend, he should tell him so he doesn't get in the middle. And Oliver has a breakdown.
Always happens.
So stupid! Take it easy. Damn it!
Oliver runs off and disappears, but he eventually calls Marissa and tells her that he took a bunch of pills but doesn't want her to call the police. So she and Ryan end up going to his penthouse, but of course all of this is a lie and he's just sitting around watching TV. Before they leave the penthouse, Ryan finds this pill thingy and comes to the conclusion that Oliver didn't try to kill himself. He tells Marissa, who does what she does best, and tells him that she's going to stay the night to take care of Oliver. On the other side, Summer decides that she's going to ruin the relationship between Anna and Seth and spends the entire trip trying to do just that. But this fails because Seth and Anna have a lot of things in common. So she decides to tell them that they are like sister and brother, which makes them become weird with each other. On the adult side, Khaled comes back home from Paris with Julie and has dinner at the Cohen house with Haley, Kirsten, Sandy, and Jimmy. Sandy is trying to find Jimmy a job, but no one wants to hire him because he's a fraudster. So during dinner, he decides that he's going to buy a restaurant with him. Kirsten talks to Caleb and convinces him not to give Haley more money because she's going to disappear again, which causes a fight between the sisters, and Haley ends up leaving the house. Ryan tells Seth about everything that happened, and he also thinks that Ryan is overreacting. So he ends up kind of apologizing to Marissa and telling her that he's going to try to not get jealous and stuff. And right when they're about to kiss, they found out that Oliver has joined their school, and by sheer coincidence, he has the exact same classes as Marissa. Anna and Seth are a bit awkward after Summer's sibling comment, and they realize that they spend too much time together and always do the same thing, so they try to do things on their own. Meanwhile, Summer starts dating this guy named Danny, who everybody acts like he's the funniest guy alive. He is not, he's just annoying, but But anyways, this makes Seth upset and jealous, which makes Anna upset and jealous. Seth eventually tries to hang out with Danny, and Danny tells him that he should stop being so funny around Summer because that's all she talks about, and she eventually breaks up with him by the end of the episode. Ryan talks with Oliver, who tells him that he transferred because there was an incident at his previous school. When he tells Seth about his suspicions of Oliver, he jokingly tells him that he should get into the school folder, and Ryan does just that, but he gets caught and almost gets expelled. After his meeting with the principal, Ryan sees Oliver giving Marissa a letter, so he goes and gets into her locker to read it. It's a love letter, but when he confronts Marissa about it, she tells him that the letter is for Natalie and gets angry at him. A few days go by and Marissa is angry at Ryan and spends all her time with Oliver. When Oliver decides to provoke Ryan by telling him to stay away from Marissa, and Ryan ends up punching him, which leads to him being suspended. On the adult side, Sandy is going forward with the restaurant idea with Jimmy, who almost backs out of it but eventually comes to his senses and agrees to it. Julie wants a job as an interior designer. Kirsten gives her the job, but Julie ruins everything by going overboard with the design, which leads to the model home not being ready and Kirsten having to come up with a last-minute plan that ends up working, but Julie takes full credit for it in front of Caleb. Sandy is very mad at Ryan and tells him that if he wants to keep being a part of the family, he's gonna have to stay home. He starts to have some second thoughts about bringing him home and spends the entire episode trying to get him to talk to him. Julie gets the interior design job and transforms the entire office, which makes Caleb annoyed, and he convinces Kirsten to break up with Julie for him. When she does, Caleb walks in and Julie ends up quitting. When Summer and Marissa talk about what happened, Summer tells her that Ryan probably had a reason to punch Oliver because he's violent but not stupid. But still, Marissa doesn't want to listen, and Anna and Seth also eventually come around and side with Ryan, realizing that Oliver is in love with Marissa. Oliver tries to convince Marissa to go with him to a camping trip when Luke shows up and joins them and realizes that it seems that Oliver is taking a lot of liberties making decisions for Marissa and ends up storming off angry at him. Ryan calls Marissa and leaves her a message telling her that they need to talk, but when Marissa lifts the table, Oliver deletes it. Ryan obviously doesn't know this, so he shows up to the school anyway to tell Marissa that Oliver has a restraining order against him and that his girlfriend does not exist. But instead of Marissa, Oliver shows up and tells Ryan once again to stay away from her. The next day, Oliver and Marissa don't go to school and Seth and Luke see them leave. Luke decides to ask around at Oliver's old school and find out for sure that Natalie is not real. When Ryan goes to tell Marissa this, she gets mad at him because previously he had talked with Julie about everything and she had called the penthouse asking for Oliver's parents. She, of course, doesn't believe him when he tells her that Natalie is not real. Summer starts to hang out with Anna and Seth a lot, which makes Anna annoyed because they have no time to spend together, and he even invites Summer to stay for dinner. They keep hanging out and Sandy realizes that Anna is annoyed, so he yells at Seth about it, even though he's really just letting out his frustration with Ryan. Marissa ends up running away and going to stay at Oliver's house. There, he tries to convince her to go to Paris, and she seems very weirded out by him, finally. But when Luke calls and tells her that Natalie is not real, she doesn't believe him and tells him to go to her house to bring her some clothes to the hotel. When he gets there, Julie is there crying about everything that has happened to her in the last few months, and the second predatory relationship of the season begins between Luke and Julie. When Marissa goes downstairs to look for her clothes, she notices that the receptionist is called Natalie Bishop. And when she confronts Oliver about it, she tries to leave, but he freaks out.
Always do this. Why do I always do this?
Oliver, stop it! Damn it!
She calls Ryan and Oliver holds her at gunpoint. Sandy and Ryan drive to the hotel, and when they get to the reception, they try to get a key to the penthouse, but instead the receptionist takes them to the penthouse and knocks on the door. Oliver acts as cool as a cucumber, but Marissa eventually yells that he has a gun, and the security guards enter the penthouse. After everything happens, Seth tries to call Summer to let her know the news, and Anna gets angry at him and breaks up with him. At the end of the day, Seth apologizes to Ryan for not believing him, and everything is back to normal. Or at least that's what Marissa wishes, because she wants to act like nothing happened. She wants things to be the way that they were, but everything is obviously tense between the two, which I'm sure going to the Bachelor's Gala during Valentine's Day is going to fix. Seth tells Summer that he and Anna broke up and asks her what she's going to do during Valentine's Day, but she turns him down and tells him that she doesn't want to be his second choice, so they'll see each other at the gala. Seth then goes to her house and tells her that he always was in love with her, and that's why he and Anna broke up, and they have sex. Marissa goes to Ryan's house and tries to have sex with him, but he tells her that it's too soon after everything that happened, and she ends up leaving. The next day, Seth and Summer talk to Ryan and Marissa about their sex and how it was bad. They try again, but it's also bad, so Seth basically breaks up with her, but then she goes to his house and they give it another shot. On the adult side, Kirsten and Sandy fight because she wants to celebrate Valentine's Day, but he doesn't. But like always, they end up making up at the end. Jimmy gets a present from a secret admirer at home, goes looking for Haley, and takes her to a restaurant for a date. She asks him to be in a relationship, but he turns her down because of his relationship with Kirsten and Sandy. And Luke goes to Julie's house to ask her if she's going to the gala. She goes, but decides to go home, and Luke then goes after her, and they end up having sex at her house. Earlier in the episode, while setting things up for the gala, Ryan comes across Teresa, who is working as a waitress in the event. He tells her about everything that happened, and Marissa sees them. Marissa tries to start again from zero with Ryan, but he tells her that he can't do it. He leaves the event with Teresa, and Marissa sees them. They go to the Coens' house to talk, and after she leaves, Marissa shows up and tries to kiss him, but he tells her that he doesn't trust her anymore, and they officially break up. A few days later, Ryan receives a call from Teresa, who asks him to hang out, but we see a man coming out of the bathroom when she hangs out. This man is Eddie, and he is her boyfriend/fiance. Meanwhile, Summer is ignoring Seth at school and wants to keep the relationship a secret. She agrees to being in a kissing booth, which makes him upset, and Anna tells him that he needs to stop being a coward and put his foot down, and he does just that by basically telling her that they can't be together in private if they can't be together in public. Marissa and Ryan agree to be friends and decide to hang out after school. They do that, but Teresa shows up and Marissa ends up leaving. Teresa tells Ryan that she's staying in Newport for some time because her mom supposedly got fired, but in reality she's staying in because she ran away from Eddie. On the adult side, Caleb tells Kirsten that her uncle got arrested for accidentally entering a hotel room while drunk, and that he wants her to ask Sandy to help him out, but she tells him that if he wants his help, he's gonna have to ask for it himself. Caleb does just that, and Sandy agrees. He finds out that the room that this man stumbled upon just so happened to be a room where a meeting was taking place with members of an opposing company, and accuses him of being there to steal documents for Caleb. So he tries to refuse to help him, but Caleb tells him that if he goes down, so will Kirsten. Julie and Luke see each other at school, and she tells him to go to her house that night. Jimmy interrupts their conversation and seems to be a bit suspicious about what's going on between them, but doesn't say anything. Luke and Julie start to see each other at a motel, which turns out to be the same motel that Teresa is living at. At nighttime, Callie goes to Julie's house and tries to get back together, but she turns him down. Teresa and Ryan hang out, and she keeps with a lie about her mom losing her job, but when Ryan goes back home, Eddie shows up and tells him that they are engaged and asks him if he has seen her. He lies and says no, but tells him that he will let him know if he sees her. Ryan then goes to see Teresa and confronts her about the whole thing, and then invites her to dinner, and of course Marissa ends up showing up. Eddie calls Ryan the next day, but he refuses to answer, and Marissa goes to visit Teresa at the motel to talk to her about their love for Ryan. Teresa tells Marissa about Eddie, and at the same time, Ryan goes to visit Eddie and talk about Teresa. At the end, Teresa decides to call Eddie, and Marissa leaves the room at the exact same time that Julie enters hers. Summer talks with Anna and tells her that she's afraid that Seth will get bored of her because he's smarter than her, and she doesn't know why he likes her. Anna tells this to Seth, who then declares his love for Summer in front of everyone, and they kiss. At the end of the episode, Ryan shows up at the motel and tells Teresa that he doesn't want her to leave right after she calls Eddie, and they kiss. Now that Teresa is staying in Newport, they have to figure out what she's going to do because she can't live in the motel forever. Seth, Anna, and Summer are hanging out as friends again, and Anna tells them that she's going back to Pittsburgh. Seth thinks that she's leaving because of him, but she tells him that she just misses her home. On the adult side, Caleb is named Man of the Year, and they are going to have a party in his name at the Coens' house, and Sandy agrees to take in Uncle Sean's case after getting Caleb to tell Kirsten the truth. Luke goes to visit Julie after school, and Jimmy sees him there, so they make up an excuse as to why he's there, but it's obvious that Jimmy doesn't believe them. Teresa calls Eddie and tells him that she's not going home right when Ryan was going to tell her that she needed to go because they still don't have a plan, but he ends up not telling her anything. The next day, Eddie shows up at the school and punches Ryan in front of everyone. Ryan then goes to visit Teresa, and they end up having sex before the party, but they don't know that Eddie is in his car looking at them. Ryan invites Teresa to the party, but she tells him no, even though she eventually agrees to go when Marissa invites her and gives her a dress. At the party, Anna shows up to say goodbye to everyone and gives Ryan a letter for him to give to Seth. Luke starts to flirt with Julie and Jimmy sees them again. Eddie shows up at the party and starts a fight with Ryan. Caleb invites Julie to have dinner with him. Seth goes after Anna to the airport and tries to stop her, but she tells him that she loves him like a friend and leaves. And lastly, Teresa decides to get back together with Eddie and go back home. A few days later, Ryan and Seth go back to the motel to look for a watch that Ryan left there when they see Luke and Julie making out. Ryan confronts Luke and tells him that he needs to break up with Julie while they go to LA because earlier on, Summer and Marissa were at the beach walking around and they saw a guy named Brady who stars on Summer's favorite show, The Valley, and who invites them to his birthday party in LA. But Marissa tells Ryan that she's not going because she thinks that the two of them should spend time apart from each other. So she's going to stay and spend time with her mom. Because of this, Ryan decides that he's not going to go so that Marissa goes, but Seth tells him that he needs to convince Marissa to go, and when he goes to do so, Marissa has found one of Luke's necklaces in her mom's house. On the adult side, Jimmy and Sandy's restaurant is going to open soon, but they have no more money and the restaurant is not finished. Since they don't have any more money, Kirsten tells them that they should get Julie to sign the place and they should get Caleb to invest in the restaurant. So they plan a dinner at the house with some important people in order to get them to invest. Caleb takes Julie home and asks her for a date, but she turns him down. When he leaves, Luke shows up and they end up having sex. She then leaves and goes to the dinner and Luke shows up again to try and break up with her, but she tells him to go to her house. He finally breaks up with her then and Julie gets back together with Caleb. Back in LA, the Fab Four go to the club where the party is taking place and Paris Hilton shows up and flirts with Seth, while Summer, who is jealous, goes with Brady to watch some on-air episodes. And Ryan and Marissa come across Haley, who is working as a stripper even though everybody thought that she was in Greece working as an aerobics instructor. Ryan calls Sandy and tells him that he saw Haley and he tells Ryan that they need to go back home. Ryan decides to find Haley again to take her home, but while doing so they all get kicked out of the club, but they come up with a plan and get back in. Marissa and Ryan get back in and Seth goes looking for Summer and finds her right when Brady was going to kiss her. Ryan and Marissa find Haley and they get kicked out, and right when Ryan was about to catch a beating, Jimmy shows up and takes Haley home, but they lie to Kirsten and tell her that Jimmy picked her up at the airport. After breaking up with Julie, Luke goes to the Coens' house to tell Ryan about it, but Marissa was there and hears him.
It's over. Okay. I'm done having sex with Julie Cooper.
Marissa runs away and Luke, Ryan, and Seth go looking for her and don't find her, but she leaves a message saying that she's fine and that they shouldn't look for her. Obviously, Ryan goes looking for her anyways and finds her in Chino at Teresa's house where she's getting ready to celebrate her engagement. He sees Marissa, but she tells him to leave because she's not going home and she's planning to just stay in Chino and find a job, which sounds like the worst idea ever. When he's calling Julie to tell her where she is, he gets attacked by one of Eddie's friends, and Julie tells Ryan that if he doesn't get her back home, she will call the police and tell them that they have her against her will. Meanwhile, Sandy's mom decides to visit, which doesn't seem to be something that she does normally because everyone is acting and saying that she's a monster, but when she shows up, she's a sweetheart and everyone is very confused by it. Sandy and his mom have an argument over her behavior and she tells him that she has cancer and has 4 to 6 months to live. She doesn't want to get chemo, but Sandy eventually convinces her to do it. At Teresa's house, Ryan starts helping to set up, and Teresa convinces Marissa to hear him out, while Eddie and Ryan talk about everything that happened. Luke also shows up, and Marissa slaps him and tells him to leave. Ryan eventually convinces Marissa to go home, and she does so, but under the condition that she can live full-time with her dad. Haley surprises Jimmy at his home and kisses him, but once again, he turns her down because of his relationship with the Coens. However, later on, he goes to the house and tells her that she's right, and they start dating. A few days go by, and the Fab Four go out to watch a movie to distract Marissa when they come across Julie and Luke talking in the mall. Everyone is mad at Luke for still seeing Julie, but he tells Ryan and Seth that he's leaving town with his dad and that he wanted to tell Marissa and Julie in person, which is why he was with her and asks them for help to talk to Marissa. Ryan and Marissa make up, and he tries to get her to talk to Luke, but she refuses to do so. They go to her house and Caleb shows up trying to talk to Marissa in private, but she tells him that Ryan needs to be present. Caleb asks her for permission to ask her mom to marry him that night, and she agrees to it. On the adult side, the restaurant is going to open, but they get their alcohol license revoked, so Sandy needs to try and fix it. But he finds out that the man who is in charge of the permits used to be Jimmy's client and won't give them the license, so they go to Caleb and ask him to use his influence, but to no avail. Instead, he convinces Sandy and Jimmy to sell the restaurant to him. At the restaurant opening, Luke shows up completely wasted and enters the restaurant right when Caleb is proposing to Julie. So he storms off and drives away, keeps drinking, and gets into a horrible car accident, after which Marissa finally agrees to talk to him and forgives him. Caleb calls Marissa and tells him that he knows about everything and wants them to be a family, and that if she doesn't agree to living with him and Julie, he's not going to buy her dad's restaurant. In case you're wondering what Summer and Seth were doing this whole episode, they were giving Marissa's room a makeover, which we see at the end of the episode. The next day, Teresa calls Sandy and asks to meet up with him without Ryan knowing. There, we find out that Teresa has been the victim of domestic violence from Eddie for a while now, and she's trying to figure out what would happen if she pressed charges against him. Seth wonders why he hasn't met Summer's dad, and she tells him that she's never introduced him to anyone before, so she agrees to having breakfast with him. It goes awful, and Summer basically breaks up with Seth because her dad doesn't like him. On the adult side, Julie convinces Kirsten to plan a party for her, and Caleb tells Marissa that she has to help. Marissa tells Kirsten that the only family member Julie still has contact with is her aunt Cindy, and she invites her to the party. However, Cindy is not very close to Julie, and she says that she hasn't talked to her in 7 years. So when Julie sees her, she's angry. Haley and Jimmy are still secretly dating, but Marissa finds them on the couch, and then they tell everyone else when Julie and Kirsten see them kissing in front of their door. Caleb gives Jimmy and Sandy $2.5 million for the restaurant, which is more than they had originally agreed to, which makes Sandy suspicious of him. Ryan and Marissa go to buy a cake for the party, and they come across Teresa. Ryan gets really angry because Sandy knew and didn't tell him, and Sandy invites Teresa to stay at their house for a few days while they figure out everything. At the party, Cindy embarrasses Julie in front of everyone, so the two of them end up having a heart-to-heart about how their lives turned out. Also, Ryan tries to go to Chino to talk to Eddie after he finds out that he had hit Teresa before. Sandy tries to stop him, but he leaves anywhere and catches up to Teresa and convinces her to not go back to Chino. A few days later, Teresa tells them that it's time for her to figure out what she's going to do, and the reason why she does that is because she's pregnant. Meanwhile, Julie and Caleb are having their bachelor parties. Caleb and the boys go to Vegas, and Kirsten plans Julie a party at home with Haley getting her strippers. While Jimmy is looking for a new home, the realtor tells Sandy that Caleb is going to turn the restaurant into a mall. So when they're in Vegas and Caleb tries to meet with a potential buyer, Sandy crashes the dinner and ruins it for him. Also during that dinner, Jimmy punches him because Sandy, who had found out earlier that Caleb was blackmailing Marissa, tells him about it. Back to the kids, Ryan decides to play poker in order to make money because Teresa needs $2,000 to make it to Atlanta, where she has a cousin who told her that she could stay there if she pays for her expenses. They try to play in the casino, but they are underage, so this girl that they meet earlier gets them into an underground poker game where Ryan wins. After this, the boys realize that the girls that they had been hanging out with were not college students like they said, but escorts, and their pimps tell the guys that they have to pay for the hours they had them. So Ryan ends up playing more poker to make the money, and by the end of it, they lose all of the money that they had made. While the boys are in Vegas, Teresa and Marissa spend time together, and Teresa ends up telling her that not only is she pregnant, but she doesn't know who the baby is.
You can't drink, you can't have sushi. What are you, pregnant?
Or else they'll say it isn't his.
Who else's could it be?
And Ryan finds out at the end of the episode when Marissa tells him once he gets back to Newport.
Teresa's pregnant.
It's the season finale now, and a few days later, Ryan and Seth go with Teresa for her to get a blood test done, and it comes back positive. When they go back home, they tell Sandy and Kirsten, and Ryan tells Marissa. He also tells her that he wants to help Teresa, but that he wants to be in a relationship with her. On the adult side, Kirsten is finishing up the planning for the wedding. Marissa is packing her stuff to move in with Julie and Caleb, and Sandy tries to fix his relationship with Caleb when he tells them that selling the restaurant was the only way to save the company. Sandy tries to help, but is unable to do so. Teresa tells Ryan that they are not ready for a baby and that she's not going to have it. So Kirsten offers to take Teresa to Planned Parenthood, and on the way there, they have a conversation where she convinces her not to have the abortion. She talks to her mom about everything and tells her the truth, so she gets ready to leave and asks Ryan to go with her, but tells him not to after seeing the look on his face that tells her that he obviously doesn't want to go. Ryan tells Marissa that night during the dinner, and of course they are both disappointed. After the dinner, the Fab Four go to the beach, and Ryan tells them that he's going to go back to Chino to help Teresa. After the wedding, Ryan says goodbye to everyone, and Seth takes it particularly hard. He had previously made plans with him to go sailing during the summer and had tried to sell the boat, but after Ryan leaves, he decides not to sell it and gets on it, leaving behind only a note for Summer and his parents. The season ends with Teresa driving Ryan away, with Marissa watching him in a scene that is identical to the one in the first episode where Sandy takes him back to Chino.
Well, it
goes like this, the fourth, the fifth.
Seth leaves in his little boat, Marissa moves in with her mom, and Kristen and Sandy are crying because they lost a child, while Hallelujah plays in the background. Alright, so that was season 1 of the OC. It's widely considered to be the best season, which kind of worries me because, while the first half of the season definitely had me on a chokehold, the second half bored me a little bit, and I was kind of rushing to get it over with, especially after the Oliver plot. I really like all of the characters on the show, even the villains, and when I say that I like them, I don't mean that I like them as people. I mean that I like them for the characters that they are supposed to be. I think they're very realistic and they never really act out of character. I also really loved the relationship between all of the female characters. Even though they were fighting over the same guy, they never got catty with one another and never really got into arguments or had low blows. And that's really refreshing to see, especially for a show in the mid-2000s. Now let's talk about the one thing that I hate about this season that almost made me stop watching and made me kind of bored for the rest of the season, the Oliver storyline. The reason why I hate it is because I feel that it wasn't done properly or taken all the way there. Like I mentioned earlier, they let that Oliver not being who he says he is part of the story out to dry and never do anything with that. We never see his parents or hear from them, so we don't know what is up with them. And if I'm not mistaken, we also don't know what happened at his old school. We know that he has a restraining order, but we don't know why. I feel like all of this would have had a bigger conclusion and revelation than what we got. The other reason why I dislike it is because of how it reflects on Marissa. I know that I dragged her a bit when I was talking about those episodes, but I actually understand why she felt that she needed to help him. She saw herself in him, and helping him was in a way helping herself. And also maybe a way to show to herself that she wasn't doing that bad because somebody else was doing worse. But at the same time, pushing her boyfriend aside for the new guy was a pattern of behavior at that point. She did the same thing to Luke. And yes, I know that he was cheating on her, but she didn't know that yet. And now she was doing it to Ryan. Another issue in regards to Marissa that kind of worries me for the rest of the series is that the bad things that happen to her in this season always lead to us focusing on other people. And we never really get a deeper idea of how she's feeling or how things are affecting her, because the way that it affected others, mainly Ryan, is always more important to the writers, but it isn't to me. Like, I want to know how being held at gunpoint or almost overdosing changed her as a person and affected her. And I hope that as the show progresses, the Marissa storylines are more about Marissa and less about everyone else. The last thing I think is worth mentioning is the Teresa storyline. I don't know if I like it or if I hate it. I know for a fact that it was intended to be pro-life propaganda because that came out in 2004, but it was very inefficient in my opinion because they showed that not having the abortion is just going to make everyone miserable. So there is that. I also don't really like the fact that we don't know what or if anything happened with the domestic abuse thing with Eddie. That was kind of left in the air, and I wish that it had a real resolution, or that we saw more of how it affected her as a person and not just her relationship with Ryan. Overall, I think that season 1 is pretty good. They have a lot of storylines. There's always something going on, and that's good, but I do worry that they will run out of storylines and start jumping the shark. So I hope that in season 2 we get less storylines, if that means that they are more developed. I understand why this season is most people's favorite, but I feel pretty indifferent about it. Like, I enjoyed it and I like it quite a bit, but I didn't love it. It didn't make me crazy for the show. So I hope that season 2 finally hooks me in and makes me a The OC stan. Alright, so that was all for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Let me know what you think of the show, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!